What's up, everybody? It's your man J Rock, and I'm coming at you with another episode of the J Rock Show. And as always, I am joined by my co host Siege. How are we doing today, my brother?
We're doing great. It's Friday. We're living life, J-Rock. How are you doing today?
I am doing just fine. And today on docket, we got some talk a little bit of SWU recruiting commitment action. As we know, that's definitely been heating up this past week.
Yeah, let's jump into it. Let's jump into SimWorld U. I haven't talked enough about it yet, so I'm in.
All right, so obviously the big story, big news coming out of SimWorld Prep and into SWU this over the past week was the commitment of Japhet Towns, the number 3 player in SimWorld Prep, committing to Missouri of all places. What was your take on that, Siege?
Oh, dude, the first thing I thought was how did they get enough NIL money to secure Joffat Towns? I'm just gonna be honest. First of all, I didn't really see Joffat going to an SEC school at all. Um, But if he was, I'm just wondering what his connection is. Does he have maybe like a grandfather who played basketball at Missouri? Does he have and don't get me wrong, Missouri is a pretty good basketball program. They've had their history. They've had a few guys go off to the NBA, so it's not like he chose like a completely unknown terrible program. But when you talk about a guy like Joffat Towns, you're talking about the. I will argue that he is the best scorer at the high school level in the world. I will make that argument. And so when you talk about a guy like that, you start to think the Dukes, the North Carolinas, maybe the Kentuckies. You maybe even think, you think schools like that, maybe even Kansas, but instead he's going to go with one of Kansas's rivals. And so, I'm kind of wondering. I'm hoping somebody goes get an interview with the guy. I would love to talk to him because I'm thinking maybe J Rock he's got some kind of family connection, some kind of lineage, or they just offered him the bag to go there. I'm not sure.
Yeah, without a doubt. And if you remember a couple months back, Japhet Towns was quoted as saying he was appreciative of all the interest he was getting from like your Dukes, your North Carolinas, your typical blue blood programs. But remember, a while back he was quoted as saying he desired something different in his recruitment, and he was wanting to go to. He was looking at the time at going to a school where maybe they didn't have that traditional, blue blood kind of success. He could step in and be a program changer, a difference maker, and still contend for a national championship. So I
Well, he certainly did that. He
Yeah,
certainly did that.
and I think with Missouri, if assuming he kind of stayed with the same mindset of where he wanted to go, I mean, I I think that definitely kind of fits the bill there, in Columbia, Missouri.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it does. So, I mean, look, congrats to Jaffet. He's certainly going to bring a spotlight to Missouri, if nothing else. So I'm excited to see that for sure.
Yes, sir, indeed. And then kind of staying in the Midwest a little bit, talk a little bit about Lakeshore Drive and their two stars, D'Angelo Jordan and Norman Nations, who it was reported here a couple weeks back that the pair of Jordan and Nations were very likely, there was a very likely chance that they were to team up again next season in SimWorld U. And if this were to occur, the three likely destinations appeared to be the Illini, Missouri again, and then Kansas. Now, Siege, when you look at those three schools and look at the idea of those two teaming up once again, what are you looking at, or what do you see kind of as being a potential likely destination should they, pair up again?
So my first thought is, oh my God, if they go to Missouri, we're gonna have a problem. But I'm gonna be real. I don't really see that getting pulled out of the bag. Both of those guys are top tier guys. I'm not sure they've got any kind of relationship. I'm sure they know each other, but I'm not sure they got that kind of relationship with Jaffet Towns. And so the likelihood of them building this almost freshman super team over at Missouri feels unlikely, but I'll never say never. It felt unlikely that Jaffet Towns was going to head over to Missouri. So, you know, I'm here for it. But to me, looking at the other two options, because I'm going to go ahead and kind of in my head scratch out Missouri is an option for them, but again, you never know. They're both from Illinois, so my initial reaction is Illinois. But then when I think about the kind of player that D'Angelo Jordan is, and I think about his build, and I think about what he could be, it it almost screams Kansas to me. D'Angelo Jordan almost screams a Kansas wing to me. When I go back and I think about Ben McLemore, Andrew Wiggins, Paul
Ooh.
Pierce. When I think about these guys, D'Angelo Jordan almost like fits that mold. It's a blue blood program. He's going to get a lot of exposure, a lot of TV exposure, national games all the time, here and there. It's going to be great for his draft stock. He's going to get to go somewhere where he's going to have the most eyes on him possible in that region to get to the next level and to up his stock, get a better contract when he makes it to the SWBA, if he makes the SWBA. But when it comes to the type of players I've seen at those schools, the one that fits his build more to me is Kansas. Now, I'll say if it was Norman Nations on his own, I would almost see Norman Nations in Illinois a little more based on some of the alumni they have. But there's some guards who kind of remind me of Norman Nations that have played at Kansas as well. I think of the Frank Masons. I think of, I'm blanking on his name, but Kansas, I think if I had to give my crystal ball selection right now and it was a sure thing that those two were teaming up, it's Kansas for me.
Yeah, for sure. I could definitely see that. You think a lot of Kansas's great history, especially, with wing players like a lot of the guys you mentioned, D'Angelo Jordan certainly could be that kind of guy. And, when I look at a guy like Norman Nations, I think out of the two, you definitely see D'Angelo Jordan being more of a potential one and done kind of player. But Norman
Yeah,
Nations, I see as a guy who you can maybe keep around for 2 to 3 years, you know,
maybe even four. I could see Norman
even
Nations as a four, maybe fifth year kind of guy, like the Frank Masons of the world.
yeah, without a doubt. I could see that very possible with Norman Nations, being the guy you can kind of long term build a program around. Illinois has had some great guards or not. And yeah, like you said, I'm not sure if there is any kind of rapport or relationship between those two and Japhet Towns, but if that were to come to fruition and we would have that kind of big three at Missouri, I mean, just think what that would do for the landscape of the SEC and for the SWU overall. I mean, we'd be talking some major, major high profile entertainment for sure.
Yeah, we absolutely would. I mean, if it happens, it'll be insane to watch. I'm not going to bet on it though. I'm not going to
Yeah,
bet on that one.
yeah, no, I think that is definitely one where, like you said, anything could happen, but I definitely see Illinois or Kansas being the two likelier options. But that, kind of staying on Lakeshore Drive for a second here, they also have Zay Gore, who I believe is departing this year as well, and I know he is heavily linked to Illinois as well. So I don't know if that might kind of affect Illinois' pursuit of the two, when it comes down to it as well. But I think that'll be another factor into it to kind of keep an eye on.
I'll tell you right now, if I had to pick a team that Zagor ends up going to, it's Houston. He's a Texas guy. He's one of those kind of beefier guards, tough guards who can do a little bit of scoring, a lot of facilitating. He just he just fits the Houston Cougars mold to me. If I had to guess, but the idea of all three of them joining up at Kansas or Illinois is kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy if they can make that happen.
Yeah, without a doubt. And then moving along here, another guy from Reigning Trades I wanted to talk about, stretch forward Travion Sherwood, who's been one of the most underrated stretch kind of forwards or stretch bigs, I feel like, in the league thus far this season. And I think his numbers, they're not going to jump out at you like crazy, but they're very respectable. But obviously, when you play behind a guy like Japhet Towns, who's averaging 25 plus a game, you know, you're not going to be a guy who's averaging that many points with someone already having that much of a high percentage of the offensive share. But what is it you see when you look at a guy like that, Travion Sherwood, and what you could see his potential being in SimWorld U?
I mean, look, he's still very talented. I think a lot of people fail to realize that just because a guy doesn't put up great stats in high school, you can a lot of times contribute that to coaching scheme, to coaching, to development kind of stuff. Get him with a good coach. We're talking about a 6'11" frame on a very athletic kid who can do some shooting. He can shoot the ball. So to me, this is a guy that I want. If I'm a college coach, I'm trying to get this kid on my roster. Looking at my records here, I see he's got looks from Washington, Missouri, North Carolina. Is Missouri just looking at everyone? Is the interest from Missouri just everywhere? Are they going to get everybody? J Rock, is that what's going on? But I don't know. Missouri's obviously really put a lot of money into their recruiting effort this year. But if I'm Travion Sherwood and I get the opportunity, I'm going to North Carolina because we've seen a lot of North Carolina. Um, We've seen a lot of good bigs come out of North Carolina. We've seen, Tyler Hansbrough, Armando Baycott, who's still there. You see a lot of good bigs come out, and Travion Sherwood can shoot the ball as well. So give him kind of that training there at UNC, and I think he's going to end up being a good pro. I think he'll make it to the pros.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I think he is also another guy who I think you could look at, like kind of like Norman Nations in a sense, potentially being a long term build, 2 to 3, if not 4 years.
Yeah, I like it.
But yeah, like you said, Washington, Missouri, and North Carolina, him going from cross country to North Carolina, I think would probably be the best move out of those three, and obviously those his interested schools will continue to, increase in the level of profile, but he is definitely one I've been saying we got to keep an eye on because very very few stretch forwards you can see like that have the skill set and potential that he does.
Yeah, absolutely. He's got a very high ceiling to me once he gets with a good coach.
Yeah, without a doubt. And then now moving along, UNLV running Rebels. UNLV, they already secured a very early commitment from Keontae Smythe, but now they are also being heavily reported as making a big time push for SimWorld Oceania stars Damian Luffy and Jarrell Beauchamp. Now,
UNLV is? They're
UNLV,
going after
correct.
everybody. UNLV and Missouri are just going after everybody. I don't know what's up, but those might be the two powerhouses in SimWorld U next year in a couple years when these freshmen get older. That's crazy.
Yeah, but, you know, Missouri, for instance, Dennis Gates was quoted as saying they're going all in, national championship or bust. They're going for
Yeah.
it. UNLV, I think, is definitely in that same boat, looking to recapture that success they had, in the 80s and 90s, with the Tarkanian days. And as, high level potential scorers that you have in Damian Luffy and, Jarrell Beauchamp, pairing them with a guy like Keontae Smythe, I think that could be a very underrated trio. Not even
That would be a crazy trio.
not even factoring in what else they could be, bringing in alongside them.
I mean, I have no problem with that trio. Those two scoring the ball with that kind of presence inside, that's not a bad base for a team, J Rock. Not at all.
Without a doubt. And kind of the last thing I had on par here to talk about today is talk a little bit of bad boys basketball. And specifically
Ooh, okay.
Samuel Baugus and Bo Pagnotti Jr., two guards who have been playing really good basketball as of late. But now off with Pagnotti, he's linked. The big one is Ohio State. He has been offered by. What do you see with Bo Pagnotti and potentially at the next level?
I see him as a Michigan guy. He's a great scorer, good at coming off the bench, doesn't need too many, opportunities, but when he gets hot, he gets hot. I see him as a Michigan guy. If I had to choose, I see him teaming back up with Lorenzo Phenom over there at Michigan. Yeah, I could see it. Yeah. Michigan, I think, would be my prediction for him.
Yeah, and funny you say Michigan because Michigan has also been reported as making a big push for Samuel Baugus as well.
Really,
Yeah,
really.
we could
That would be a great team up. Get that trio back together.
potentially be looking at a potential duo of Phenom and Baugus, or a trio of Phenom, Baugus, and Pagnotti once again. And I mean, just think about how crazy, insane that would be, up there in Michigan.
That would be, first of all, that's a great trio to have, and just to have them all be able to team back up would be crazy. We'll see if they actually all get the offers from those schools, but if they do, that's pretty good for them. That's pretty good on them.
Yeah, without a doubt, without a doubt. And Michigan Ohio State rivalry is already heated enough as it is, and I think this, depending on the decision of Baugus and Pagnotti and where each of them decide to go, that could definitely add some fuel to the fire in that rivalry that already has plenty of, kerosene to it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we saw Phenom do some crazy stuff already this year, so they already got a lot of firepower up there.
Yeah, without a doubt, without a doubt. All right, y'all, that's going to do it for today's episode of the J Rock Show. Siege, as always, thank you for joining me, my man.
Of course, it was a pleasure. Thanks for having me, JR.
Yes, sir. Once again, thank you all for tuning in to today's episode. As always, see the game, be the game.